Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun. This is our reaction and review for American Horror Story Delicate Episode 8. This is an episode titled Little Gold Man. We have finally made it to the Oscars, and we can't have an Oscar or any sort of ceremony on this show without something going terribly wrong for Anna Victoria Alcott, as we saw last night.
Absolutely. Listen, everybody put your hard hats
All
on
right, all right.
nice and early because this is going to be a bit of a different video because both Matt and we did not like this episode.
Yeah.
And this season started out really strong. If you've been with us since we started, covering this season, we both really liked this season when it started. Then in the middle, it started to get very middling where it was just kind of the same thing on repeat. Neither of us really liked last week's episode that much, but this episode in particular, they just drove the car over the cliff. They don't know what's going on anymore. We just had characters that were basically introduced in this episode, like Cara, who came out of nowhere. We saw for a second during this whole season. All of a sudden, she's the whole story. The Dex character, what are they doing? Why did Matt sign on to do this show? I don't understand. We're really gonna get into why this season and this episode in particular isn't working. And we say that as fans of American Horror Story. We've been watching the show forever, since time. So to be at this point that both of us are just kind of looking at each other being like, this
Yeah.
isn't working. What is going wrong with it? We're here to share with you why we think this is turning into the dumpster fire that it is.
Well, we'll get more into it. Before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We will be here no matter how much we think this current season sucks at this point. We will still be here to see how it all wraps up. Can it redeem itself? I don't know how optimistic I am, but anyway, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much who have it. It's a great way to help support us here at the channel.
Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Okay, so this episode is awful for a number of different reasons, and I think there's a lot of different ways to sort of wrap your head around it, because there are a number of seasons of Horror Story that admittedly do take a nosedive near the end. And I've said this
Yeah, you're
before, a
right.
lot of times it's kind of like you watch a sketch on SNL and it gets off to a really good start because they have a really fun premise that they want to work with, but then they have no real idea of how to end it. And so it often ends suddenly or without any sort of explanation. But the big difference is an SNL sketch is usually about 5 minutes long. If a sketch falls flat, you're like, okay, it's on to the next one. Horror Story, this is a 9 episode season. You're spending a lot of time. You're investing all this time in these characters. And because of that, you want things to land properly. And you want to get the sense that they know what they're doing as they bring you to the finale. And as much as I didn't think the last episode was great, I at least could sit back in it and be like, okay, it feels like they have a certain semblance of a plan. Like they have given us some answers on Adeline. They've sort of set things up for Dex in particular in a way that I think is really fascinating. I understand the show not wanting to make Dex into, the male savior of Anna and going
For
along
sure.
that sort of trope. However, to then completely take this left turn where all of a sudden he is a cheater, he's a terrible person. If this was 2 episodes ago, I'd be like, okay, fine, that makes sense. You spent all this time last week making us see that he can be a good person, making us see that, okay, maybe there's a path for redemption. Even in the preview, you guys showed Miss Preach basically being like, listen to your wife, Dex. And this is what we get. It just made it was a complete waste of the last episode. It's like that episode doesn't matter anymore. The Dex role is terrible. Dex sucks. Like there's no point in any of it. It just feels like the show is wasting its time giving us these characters that don't mean anything just to make it seem like Anna is more or less completely on her own, and it just doesn't vibe. It doesn't work. It's not fun. It doesn't have to be fun per se, but it has to be compelling. It has to make sense, not solicit eye rolls. That's all I had out of this. It's just a big eye roll.
This season in particular feels like it doesn't know what direction it wanted to go in. It started out a little more serious. And I mean, American Horror Story is whatever the season wants to be. New York City last season was pretty serious. They've had more campy seasons, they've had more serious seasons. It's all just whatever they want that tone to be. This season started out more serious and had a couple little comedic moments, which is fine. And then getting into the second half, it's just campy and gory, and the seriousness of it is just dissipated. The storytelling is just erratic. It's all over the place, especially in the second half, where for Dex, you brought up the Dex
Yeah.
character. Let's talk about the journey that we've been on and why I'm surprised that Matt signed on for this role. Dex has started out when we were all watching it as this guy who felt like he was kind of a shell of a man. Like there was no personality going on here. As I was watching this season, I was like, I don't understand why Anna or anybody is with him. He's not charismatic. He's not charming. He's not funny. He's not smart. He's not dumb. He's not anything. Like, he just felt empty, like there's nothing to him. Then we had the Adeline episode where he was loving and fun and, just this very different person. And we saw that, his mind was wiped. And I was like, okay, so maybe that's what's going on. We had a shell of a man, but before that, he was a man full of love. Then he had his memory wiped. And now in this episode, he's just like, I'm the worst person ever. I'm, a cheater. My wife is pregnant and trying to get pregnant. Now she's pregnant. I'm still doing this with my IVF nurse. Why? Also, that we could get to this point where Anna finds out that Cora, this nurse that we don't really know about because she was in the show for a second,
Yeah.
is all of a sudden this major player where she's been sneaking in, writing with the lipstick and ripping the pictures and changing the appointments and making Anna feel like something was going on and nobody would believe her and she didn't know what was happening, that it's this mystery woman that none of us were ever going to be able to figure out had anything to do with the story, or that she was sleeping with Dex and Dex got her this apartment and he's looking her in her eyes being like, I'm a terrible person and I know it and I don't care. I just feel like if they were going to go in this route with him, where we first met him, he's the shell of a man, he's a terrible person, but he did have love in life when he was with Adeline, that instead of wiping his memory, just let that experience turn him into this terrible person. That's the catalyst. Because if it's like, oh, we wiped his memory, why did he turn into, like, what is happening? They have no direction with this Dex character at all, and all it's doing is making me very angry.
It's just, it doesn't make any real sense for the direction the story went. And I just think that making him out into a cheater is just the laziest way to go about it, because
Oh, it's so lazy.
it's sort of every murder mystery show out there, for example. It's always just like, oh, this guy's having an affair and that's why he killed his wife. And it's just, we've seen that particular story time and time again. Like, what I wish they had done, and I don't want to like step into the fallacy of, oh, this show must do everything that's in my head. I'm not trying to say that, but they set it up that we were going to go in this interesting direction where Anna and Dex could work together in order to solve this problem. And to me, that would have been a much more compelling end of this season, that there's a way to sort of wake up Dex from what he has gone through, to realize the truth, for him to really understand more. Oh, I really do love Anna. I just haven't been able to express it because I've been going through all this other stuff and there's these parts of me that are missing, and we can really sort of do this. Like, that would have been a pretty exciting and interesting ending for me, as opposed to just completely going out of left field with this, making it very, very silly. And I do love camp sometimes with this show. I the camp season 1984 is one of my favorites. It's just, you got to have consistency for that to work. You can't just sort of bounce all over the place.
Okay, let's talk about this Cora IVF nurse that came out of nowhere to explain to the audience what was happening with Anna. This reveal fell so flat. I was just like, what is the purpose of this character except to explain away everything that happened. That's like, oh, she's ripping the picture. She's this, she's that. They could have had the witches doing that, and that would have been fine. I didn't need this character, but it felt like she was really there to just be like, they're all in on it. They're doing something to your baby. Miss Preach is already doing that. They already had an established character that they've barely used on this show.
Yeah.
They're warning Anna, trying to warn Dex, trying to get word out that something is happening to her. Don't trust anybody. Why do I need Cora to show up and say the exact same thing? Give me more Miss Preach. She has barely been in this show. And then when we finally do get her, she's just carted off to the hospital, sedated, and then disappears.
I think there are a number of different ways they could have gone about this that would have been a lot more interesting if you're going to have the exposition dump, because that's what this is. There's a big old exposition dump. Okay, so it could have happened.
Just show us, don't tell us. It's TV.
Yeah, you could have had this through the lens of Miss Preach, as you said. They could have done this through the lens of, I don't know, how about Billy Lord or Leslie Grossman, who are big American Horror Story veterans, who you guys have basically brought in for 5 minutes this season as the Ashleys, and then you just sort of ship them on their way. And it's just no offense to the performer playing Cora or anything like that, but I mean, a big part of what makes American Horror Story go is the nostalgia. And I think having it be at least delivered by one of the witches, maybe one of the witches gets trapped by Anna, or Anna and Dex work together and they're able to sort of chip away at what's going on. And that's how they realize that Siobhan is really the person who is running everything, as opposed to just wasting time in a 9-episode season. We're not even getting a 10th episode here, and then just throwing in this new character who we don't care about, we don't have any investment in. We know this character's not really going to be like that critical in the end game here, and then we're just going about our business. Yeah, we find out that Dr. Hill has some shady things going on, and I guess because she works at the clinic, there's some sort of connection. You still could have figured out another way to do it without being like, all right, we're going to just lasso in the exposition character. She's going to come in. She's magically going to be here in LA. Then we're just going to throw her away. And that's just sort of it. It's just kind of like, okay, cool. Why?
It's so lazy. Like, there were so many other ways that they could have gone about it. This show in general is very creative. It's one of the reasons that I enjoy it as much as I do. There's nothing else really like it on TV. But this type of lazy writing is everywhere on TV. I mean, there's so much TV out there that is just like, you're going to have a character come in and explain everything in 5 minutes, where it's just kind of like, you have 9 episodes. You could have shown us what's going on and why it's all happening. I didn't need her to explain anything. She could have shown up at this pre-Oscars thing, and we had it in Anna's head just all come together to be like, oh, it's this person. I remember her from the clinic. Like, they didn't even need to have a conversation. I didn't need to know, this affair with Dex. Why does it matter? Like, yeah, it mattered so that they could break them up, but Anna could have decided to leave him for a multitude of reasons, especially since this season is very much focused on, her wanting to have this Oscar. They sort of had the comparisons with Frank Sinatra and Mia Farrow, where she was filming Rosemary's Baby and he was like, you have to choose, it's me or the movie. And she's like, okay, the movie. We saw Siobhan's back there in the day, all that kind of stuff. But that she could have just made that choice. They could have been threading that in there a little bit more, that maybe Dex isn't that supportive of her. And they showed it a little bit, but not nearly enough. But it could have gotten to the point that she's just like, I'm out. Listen, I'm having this baby. Things are still happening to me. I don't feel like you believe in me. You don't believe what I'm telling you. You're not the right partner for me. Bye. And that would have been way more powerful for a season that's supposed to be empowering.
It felt like the show needed to get Dex out of the picture so that they could come up with a way to have him not be at the Oscars, to have Siobhan there sort of as the +1 instead, the person sitting next to Anna, so that we can build into the moment there. And this is where we get into another problem with this episode in this season, where they have sort of put together these roads of A, B, C. And they've kind of set it up so that, okay, you're going past point B, you're going to go to point C. No, instead of going to point C, they're just like veering off in this other direction. And you don't know if they're ever going to get to point C. Like a great example of this is in this episode, you see Anna question Siobhan and basically be like, you know, can I really trust you? Like, you know, are you telling me the truth about everything? And sort of putting out there everything with Babette. And it's starting to be like, okay, Anna's starting to get it together. She's starting to ask these questions. And then right before the Oscars, she's just there with Siobhan instead. And she's just sort of like, how badly do you want this, Anna? And Anna just seems to have full trust in her again. And it's sort of just this feeling of, well, why did we have this earlier conversation? And this is all, of course, leading to Siobhan apparently magically giving Anna the power to win the Oscars. And then, you know, this
in exchange for her baby, it feels like.
yeah, and then you have this kiss, which has gotten a lot of headlines online, and it really, you know, to be totally honest, it really just feels like this happened so that they could put it in the promos and everybody could be talking about, oh, look, Emma Roberts and Kim Kardashian kiss. Look at all the attention that we're getting from it. Like, they didn't necessarily have to do that either. It just felt a lot like, okay, we want to make these big moments, but do these big moments have to have any justification in the story? No.
Yeah, it just feels like it was like, okay, this deal is sealed with a kiss sort of thing. But yes, it felt more like they wanted to have it in the promos and stuff like that. But we did see at the Oscars that basically she traded her baby for an Oscar at that point. And it was weird that she was starting to have these questions in the car, but then when they got there, all of a sudden she's like, I'm willing to give up anything, you know, and she puts her hand on her stomach, anything. And she looks down at her baby. She knows what Siobhan is talking about. And she's like, yes, anything. And it might be because in Anna's head, she's like, well, she's not going to actually take this baby. Like, you know,
Yeah.
what is she really talking about here? Like, sure, I'll say anything. I'll give up anything because she doesn't really know what's going on. But at the same time, yeah, she knows through Cora that some things like the ripped up pictures and the time change were all happening because of her. But we still see her having these visions that her legs are changing and things are happening to her. And she's still having these visions. So she still knows that something is happening to her. She just doesn't know what.
It's a very strange way that we're ending this season, just to put it mildly, because there's a bunch of characters who were introduced, don't seemingly have that much bearing in the story anymore. How are you going to include all of them? How are you going to wrap up the story with Kim Kardashian and the witches? Like, we've already seen in the promos time and time again, Siobhan basically being like, I'm so much worse. So we obviously know that moment is coming, but it's only one episode. This episode was insanely short, by the way. I know it's
Yeah.
gonna sound kind of funny given our opinion about it to sort of then be like, oh, this episode should have been longer, but it should have been longer. You guys are making an hour-long show for cable, and if you're going to waste this much time doing these exposition dumps, you should at least get some more time in there for, I don't know, Ivy, Miss Preach, other characters that have been heavily promoted throughout the season, kind of get some sort of build up for what the finale is going to be, because you've basically now put yourself in a position. It's like, okay, the deal has been sealed, apparently. The baby is going to be given up. They're going to try to take it. Who knows what's going to happen? And this might be the craziest thing I say in this entire video. I'm not going to give up full hope on the season yet because we haven't seen the finale. I mean, a great example of this, I had a lot of hope in The Curse. And The Curse finale was terrible. And so that kind of radically changed my opinion of the entire season. So maybe this finale ends up being so much better than I kind of think it's going to be right now, and it can revive a little bit of this season, but I'm not saying I'm particularly hopeful about that right now, because I'm not.
Listen, they could have the best ending ever. This season has lost me. I was already. I was starting to become out of it during the middling of it, where it was just the same thing where Anna thinks she's crazy. Nobody's listening to her. Enter a Barbie doll. It was going on and on and on. It was the same thing,
Yeah.
rinse and repeat over and over again. Then there was the whole Ivy's the mom and everything that was going on with Adeline. They gave me a little more information. I was like, okay, there's something going on, but I just didn't really like that episode. Then we get to this episode where in comes Cora to just explain everything away. I'm just like, what are you guys doing? Somebody lost the script here and they're like, let's just make some stuff up. We don't know what's happening anymore. And one of the biggest sad things for me for this season is just how they misused Miss Preach. Like they misused Dax and they misused a bunch of
Yeah.
other characters. But Miss Preach felt like the character that was brought in to give a little bit of light and understanding towards Anna so that she wasn't just surrounded by bad people that were leading her in a bad direction and that she trusted. So she didn't know what was happening to her, that there was one person out there that was kind of like, don't trust anybody. And if you want to know more, here's my number. Give me a call. Nothing ever really happened with this character. She shows up very little this season, and then she shows up at the funeral for Dex's mom being like, you didn't listen to her, listen to your wife, Anna, listen to me. And it's like, okay, we're all here to listen to you. What do you have to say? Like, give more reason. You can't just be like, don't trust somebody. She doesn't know you, right?
Yeah.
She tries to go to the hospital to get more answers, and now Miss Preach is in the wind. Who knows what's happened to her? She's probably been taken by the witches. We don't know. We even going to see her again? Who knows? Most misused opportunity here, Miss Preach.
I'm going to issue a challenge for American Horror Story as we start to wind this video up. You guys at least have a chance to be a better season than Hotel. And I think the reason I hold Hotel in such a blatant disregard, you guys had Lady Gaga, Evan Peters, Matt Bomer, Kathy Bates, and Sarah Paulson, and you still managed to make an absolute dreck of a season that is like the worst thing you've ever put out. I can't hold, I hold so much against them because of that level of talent, but there's a chance you guys descend to the basement of that hotel. Do you really want to be there? This is your chance. I'm acting as though they haven't already filmed this, but come on, guys. At least try something in the end here.
They've lost my trust with this season. I'm already like, let's get to this finale and let's get to next season. Nice, fresh start.
We'll see exactly what happens in this finale, but be sure to hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss what we have to say about the finale once it does actually get there,
We will see.
Who knows? No, also, you can hit that card right there to watch our most recent American Horror Story review. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to our patrons, and we'll see you here next time.